Hello, I'm Joanne Turner for OMA TV, and today I'm talking to Mike Wehrs of Scanbuy. He's been a speaker here today at the OMA seminar on big data. So, Mike, you took part in the section that talked about mobile codes. So tell us, are people actually using barcodes and scanning these with their mobile phone?
Not only are they using them, they're using them more and more. So we did release some statistics that talk to the growth in the number of people who are actually scanning. So for example, I talked to, during the first quarter of the year, there were over 4 million people just on our system alone that scanned 1D barcodes. And there were well over 7.5 million just in the month of May that scanned 2D barcodes combined with that. So it is growing rapidly. The number of people who are doing it, if you look at total market, is easily in the 70 to 100 million scans a month.
Okay, so how does barcodes compare to some of the sort of next generation technologies that are coming in?
Well, I really like to think about barcodes as something that transforms the generations. So for example, we don't really see that QR codes or 1D barcodes are going to be going away anytime soon. And the reason is it's a cost question. If we're talking about something that is going to be on every single package, like a UPC code is today, the idea of saying to the brand manufacturers that they have to burden it with an extra quarter for every single package out there would bankrupt the earth. So we can't start to layer on technologies that have significant cost additions to every product. So barcodes are printed via ink. So the marginal cost to add a barcode to a product is 0.0004 cents. The marginal cost to add some of these future technologies, which I'm a complete fan of, and our system leverages and utilizes fully, so something like NFC or RFID, are in the ranges of 25 cents per tag. So 6 orders of magnitude is really a hard number to overcome when you start multiplying it by hundreds of millions or billions of products. So I think that what we're seeing right now is that the technologies that are coming online are adding some new capabilities, transactional things, proximity testing, and so forth, which are very attractive. I think that they will get adopted, but I don't think one's really going to replace the other. And in that complexity, we have, as an industry, I think our job is really to simplify that for the brands and retailers and the other constituents who use it.
Okay, so there's some really interesting statistics there. And there was a lot of comments on is free, you know, obviously the barcodes are free to people to download, obviously the apps that can do the scanning. Is free really free?
Free is definitely not free. I really kind of think it's somewhat of a misnomer. When you think about free, yes, you can go and download a free QR generator and you can generate a code that points to a particular website. And if you want to do that as a person and talk about a house party, or you want to say this is a menu item or something, that's terrific for those kinds of things. But when you start talking about a brand, you start talking about a company that cares about its name, what its engagement is going to be with its consumers, when you talk about things like contextual awareness, when you talk about how to personalize a message for an individual customer that you're trying to engage with, free doesn't do any of those things. So you want to integrate it in with your CRM technology. You want to improve relevance. You want the QR code to say, hey, wait a minute, this person I know, they've scanned other things before, I'm going to do something special for them. Then you really can't use free because there's no mechanism by which to do that. So that's where you use a service provider like Scanbuy, number one, to give you just the reliability that you know it's going to work, because I can give you countless examples of people who have had a typo and placed it in the back of magazines, and they wasted hundreds of thousands of dollars on a placement. We can give you examples of people who said, oh, wouldn't it look pretty if we used peach-colored ink on white background, and it's completely non-scannable. So those kinds of things where it's just oops kinds of errors, you would avoid them with someone who has the expertise in doing it. So you can develop that yourself. You can use best practices from someone like OMA who publishes those things, or us. But if you want to do free for your own kind of personal use where it's not got a lot of downside if something goes wrong, or it's not at huge scale, we're all for it. We offer free codes as well. But really, when you look about free and you're considering a large company, it's definitely not free.
Completely understand now. Thank you for clearing that up. And so what about a standards approach? What does all of this mean that we've discussed today for bringing a standards approach to the industry and big data?
Well, standards have been, I'd say, kind of, barcodes is really a really good example of where standards led. So with 1D barcodes, it was standardized before it was popularized. With 2D barcodes, our company, as well as a number of others, were the ones who helped draft the first specs on how 2D barcodes were going to be resolved and dealt with. So standards have been involved since day one. I think that when we're talking about going forward for things like big data, now that we're starting to get so many scans and so much data that comes from every scan, the real questions are, how do we try and make it so that it gets to scale even faster? How do we ensure that, for example, when you scan a 1D code, that right now it's best efforts? So I tell you what I know about that product. Now, I try and be a good corporate citizen and give you really good information. But if you released with 3 of your friends, you put together a scanner this weekend and someone downloaded it, you could make that 1D scan turn back anything you want. There's no rules. So standards could really help to ensure that we got a level playing field for some of the basic factual data that people need to make a buying decision or a consumption decision about a product that they're looking at. So there's still a lot of work that can be done in standards to try and make sure that, let's just say the not so pure players continue to do things right. We give a better uniform customer experience for the basics.
Well, thank you, Mike. That's been really interesting, and taking the time to talk today and speaking to us at OMA TV.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.